July 22, 2025, the world was shocked by the news Ozzy Osbourne was found dead in his Birmingham, England home. The official cause of death: complications from Parkinson's disease. But what if that's not the whole truth? In the final weeks of his life, the rock legend behaved strangely. He spoke to invisible companions, recorded mysterious messages, and constantly repeated, "They're coming for me." In Ozzy's diary, found after his death, there's an entry from July 21. "Saw Randy today. He said we'll meet tomorrow. Sharon doesn't understand. She thinks I'm going crazy. But I know the truth. My time has come." What did these words mean? And why did Sharon Osbourne immediately destroy all surveillance camera footage from the last month? The nurse who cared for Ozzy in his final days told journalists, "He constantly looked at the corner of the room and nodded to someone. When I asked who he was talking to, he answered, 'To those who are waiting for me at home.' It was eerie." The day before his death, Ozzy asked for a guitar and played a song no one had ever heard. The autopsy results are classified at the family's request, but a source at the morgue reported the condition of his brain didn't match the Parkinson's diagnosis. There was something else, something we'd never seen before. What is the Osbourne family hiding? And what secrets did the Prince of Darkness take to his grave? To understand Ozzy Osbourne's tragedy, we need to return to Birmingham in 1954. 6-year-old John Michael Osbourne lives in a house on Lodge Road, where every day is a struggle for survival. But the most terrible trauma awaits him in the basement of his own home. Jack Osbourne, Ozzy's father, worked night shifts at the factory, but few knew about his secret battle with depression. Family archives contain a medical record stating, "Patient demonstrates suicidal tendencies. Constant supervision recommended," but there was no supervision. In the autumn of 1954, little Ozzy went down to the basement for coal and saw a nightmare that haunted him his entire life. His father stood on a chair with a noose around his neck. "Don't tell Mom," Jack whispered, removing the rope. "This is our secret." This moment forever broke the child's psyche. After that incident, Ozzy began wetting the bed, stuttering, and having nightmares. The school psychologist wrote in his file, "Child shows signs of post-traumatic stress. Immediate intervention required." But in the 1950s, little was known about child psychology. Lillian Osbourne tried to cope with family problems through alcohol. Neighbors remember, she started drinking in the morning. By evening, she was so drunk she couldn't recognize her own children. Ozzy often went hungry because his mother forgot to feed him. Violence reigned in the Osbourne house. Jack beat his wife, the wife beat the children, older children beat younger ones. Ozzy, being the weakest, got it the worst. "I was beaten every day," he recalled later. "I thought all families lived this way." 1962 became a turning point in teenage Ozzy's life. School bullying reached its peak, chaos reigned at home, and thoughts of death swirled in his head. No one knew that the 14-year-old boy was already planning to end his life. At school, Ozzy was an outcast. Dyslexia made studying impossible, and poverty made him an object of ridicule. Classmates called him Dirty Osbourne and regularly beat him. Teachers didn't protect him. Instead, they joined the bullying. School archives contain a record that was long hidden. Student Osbourne was subjected to physical coercion by upperclassmen. This was a euphemism describing the gang rape that occurred in the school bathroom. After that incident, Ozzy began planning suicide. He stole sleeping pills from his mother's medicine cabinet and saved them for 3 months. In a diary found years later, there was an entry, "Tomorrow it will all end. There will be no more pain." December 15, 1962, Ozzy took 30 sleeping pills, washing them down with vodka from his father's stash. He lay in bed and waited for death. "I felt my body becoming heavy and my thoughts becoming foggy," he recalled later. Ozzy was saved only because his father returned from work earlier than usual. Jack found his son unconscious and called an ambulance. Doctors worked to revive the teenager all night. The family hid the suicide attempt from everyone, including the other children. Officially, Ozzy was poisoned by spoiled food, but the trauma remained. From that day, he began using alcohol and drugs, trying to numb the pain. Paradoxically, Winston Green Prison became not punishment but salvation for 17-year-old Ozzy. It was there he met the person who would change his fate, Tommy Iommi, future guitarist of Black Sabbath. In 1966, Ozzy tried to rob a clothing store. But this wasn't greed, it was a cry for help. "I wanted to get caught," he confessed later. Home was worse than prison. He didn't even try to hide after the theft. In the prison cell, Ozzy met Tommy Iommi, a guy from a neighboring area who was in for fighting. Their acquaintance began with conflict. Iommi tried to take Ozzy's food, but he unexpectedly fought back. The fight between Ozzy and Iommi was brutal. Ozzy, despite his thinness, fought like a wild animal. "I realized that if I didn't fight, I would die," he recalled. Iommi was impressed by his fury and offered friendship. There was an old guitar in prison that inmates played. Iommi showed Ozzy a few chords, and for the first time in his life, he felt something like happiness. "Music filled the emptiness in my soul," he said. During 6 weeks of imprisonment, Ozzy and Iommi became friends and decided to form a band. "We swore we would change the world through music," Iommi recalled. But they didn't know what price they would have to pay for fame. 1969. The band, initially called Earth, rehearses in the basement of an old church in Birmingham. It was here that an event occurred that forever changed not only music, but Ozzy Osbourne's fate. St. Michael's Church was abandoned after a fire in the 1920s. Locals considered it a cursed place. But basement rent was cheap, and the young musicians didn't believe in superstitions. From the first days of rehearsals in the church, strange things began happening. Instruments tuned themselves, unexplained sounds appeared in the basement, and the temperature dropped sharply for no apparent reason. Band members attributed this to the old building. During one rehearsal, Ozzy saw a dark figure in the corner of the basement. It was tall, in a black cloak, and its face was hidden by a hood. "It looked at me and whispered something," Ozzy recounted. The other band members saw nothing. The dark figure began dictating song lyrics to Ozzy. This is how the lyrics for Black Sabbath, War Pigs, and other band hits were born. "I didn't compose these songs," Ozzy confessed. "They came to me by themselves." After meeting the mystical figure, Ozzy's voice changed dramatically. It became more powerful, but at the same time ominous. Producers said something inhuman appeared in his singing. Ozzy paid a high price for the mystical gift. He began having hallucinations, panic attacks, and strange dreams. "I saw death every night," he recalled, and it became more and more real. March 19, 1982, a tragedy occurred that forever changed Ozzy Osbourne. Randy Rhoads, his genius guitarist and close friend, died in a plane crash. But few know, originally, Ozzy himself was supposed to fly in that plane. The 1982 tour was particularly difficult for Ozzy. He was at the peak of his drug addiction and often couldn't remember what happened on stage. Randy Rhoads was the only one keeping him afloat. On the night of March 18th, 19th, Ozzy had a dream that saved his life. He dreamed of his deceased mother, who stood by a plane and screamed, "Don't get on, don't get on." Ozzy woke up in a cold sweat and decided not to fly. On the morning of March 19th, Randy came to Ozzy and asked him to fly together. "It'll be fun," the guitarist said. But Ozzy refused, citing poor health. This was their last conversation. The plane crashed at 9:13 a.m. The pilot, Andrew Aycock, was trying to scare the musicians sleeping in the bus by flying at low altitude. On the third approach, the plane clipped the bus and exploded. Randy Rhoads died instantly. Ozzy blamed himself for Randy's death until the end of his life. "It should have been me," he repeated. "Randy died instead of me." This guilt became one of the reasons for his further self-destruction. After Randy's death, Ozzy began seeing his ghost. The guitarist appeared to him in dreams and reality, played non-existent melodies, and warned of dangers. "Randy never left me," Ozzy said. September 4th, 1989 became the darkest night in Ozzy Osbourne's life. Under the influence of alcohol and drugs, he tried to strangle his wife Sharon. But police reports contain a detail the family hid for years. By 1989, Ozzy's condition had reached a critical point. He was using cocaine, heroin, alcohol, and pills simultaneously. Sharon tried to control him, but this only increased his aggression. The police report contains Sharon's testimony. "When he was strangling me, he called me Susan. He screamed, 'Why did you leave me, Susan? Why did you die?' Susan was Ozzy's first love, who committed suicide in 1970. Susan Thompson dated Ozzy before his marriage to Thelma Riley. She couldn't handle his lifestyle and broke up with him. A month later, she was found dead in the bathtub. She had slit her wrists. Ozzy blamed himself for her death. That night, Ozzy took an especially large dose of drugs. He began raving, seeing hallucinations, and not recognizing Sharon. In his mind, his wife turned into Susan's ghost, who had come to take him with her. Ozzy attacked Sharon, screaming, "You can't take me, I'm not ready yet." He squeezed her throat and held it for several minutes. Sharon was saved only because the children's nanny returned home. Police arrested Ozzy right in the house. He spent 3 days in a cell until he sobered up. When they told him what he had done, he didn't believe it. "I would never hurt Sharon," he repeated. Officially, Ozzy and Sharon have 3 children, Amy, Kelly, and Jack. But few know they had 2 more children who died in infancy under mysterious circumstances. In 1983, a year after their wedding, Sharon gave birth to a son, Michael. The child was healthy but died in his sleep after 3 months. Doctors diagnosed sudden infant death syndrome, but Ozzy didn't believe it. In 1985, daughter Sarah was born. She also died at 4 months under the same circumstances. Ozzy was convinced it was a curse for his sins. "God is punishing me through my children," he said. Ozzy hired a private detective to find out the truth about the children's deaths. The investigation showed that toxic substance levels in the house were exceeded, the result of Ozzy's years of drug use. Learning the truth, Ozzy fell into deep depression. He blamed himself for poisoning his own children and attempted suicide several times. Sharon hid these attempts from the press. The infants' deaths affected the upbringing of the remaining children. Ozzy became overprotective of Amy, Kelly, and Jack, leading to their psychological problems and addictions. Michael and Sarah's graves are in a closed section of the cemetery. Ozzy visited them every year until his death, but never spoke about it publicly. This secret ate away at him from within. The Osbournes showed the world a happy rock star family. But behind the cameras, a real nightmare was happening. Cameras filmed only what Sharon allowed, hiding the dark truth about family life. Amy Osbourne didn't run away from home because of the cameras, as the official version claimed. She couldn't handle the domestic violence. In an interview that was banned from airing, she said, "Dad beat Mom every week, and Mom beat us." Kelly and Jack began using drugs at 13 and 14 respectively. It was a way to numb the pain from family trauma. "When I was high, I couldn't hear the screaming from my parents' bedroom," Kelly confessed. Most family scenes in the show were staged. Producers forced the family to reenact conflicts, making them more television-friendly. Real problems remained off-camera. Behind Sharon's sweet exterior hid a cruel nature. She controlled every aspect of family life and didn't allow the children to tell the truth. "Mom threatened to disinherit us if we told about real life at home," Jack recalled. In the show, Ozzy looked like a funny eccentric, but in reality, he was a broken man. Drugs and alcohol turned him into a puppet in Sharon's hands. He only did what she allowed. The show brought the family millions of dollars, but destroyed the remnants of human relationships between them. "We sold our souls for money," Jack said in one interview. In 2020, Ozzy Osbourne announced his diagnosis of Parkinson's disease, but this was only half the truth. The real diagnosis was much more frightening and meant a death sentence. In reality, Ozzy was diagnosed with a rare form of dementia caused by decades of drug use. Doctors called it toxic encephalopathy, irreversible brain damage. Dr. Michael Stern, who treated Ozzy, gave him a maximum of 5 years to live. "His brain is deteriorating every day," he told Sharon. "Soon he won't recognize loved ones." The disease began with memory loss. Ozzy forgot friends' names, song lyrics, even his own children's names. Then hallucinations began. He saw dead musicians and talked to them. The family carefully hid Ozzy's true condition. Sharon hired doubles for public appearances, and interviews were recorded in advance during periods of clarity. By 2025, Ozzy had almost completely lost the ability to speak. His last songs were recorded in parts when he could pronounce a few words in a row. It was an agonizing process. In early 2025, Ozzy realized he was dying. He asked Sharon to organize a farewell concert in Birmingham, but his body might not withstand the strain. Ozzy dreamed of a farewell concert at Villa Park Stadium in Birmingham, where it all began. But his body betrayed him at the most important moment. All of 2024, Ozzy's team prepared a grandiose show. All surviving Black Sabbath members, guest stars, and a symphony orchestra were supposed to gather. Tickets sold out in an hour. Rehearsals became torture. Ozzy could barely remember song lyrics, got confused in movements, and fell on stage. "It was painful to watch," guitarist Zakk Wylde recalled. 3 days before the concert, Ozzy almost lost the ability to speak. He opened his mouth but couldn't utter a sound. The last words Ozzy spoke were, "Mom, I'm coming home." He said them on February 13, 2025, looking at a photograph of his long-deceased mother. The concert almost had to be canceled. Sharon announced that Ozzy was too ill to perform, but didn't reveal the true reasons. Yet 80,000 fans were able to say goodbye to their idol. On the night of February 18, 2025, something mystical happened in Ozzy Osbourne's house. The nurse on duty by his bedside witnessed events that defy explanation. Nurse Maria Gonzalez recounted, "All night, Mr. Osbourne talked to someone invisible. He called names, Randy, Bon Scott, John Bonham. He said, 'Yes, I'm ready. I'm coming with you.'" Around midnight, the room temperature dropped sharply. Maria saw Ozzy's breath become visible, though the heating was working normally. "There was a feeling that someone was in the room," she recalled. At 2:30 a.m., Ozzy unexpectedly began singing. His voice, which had been silent for weeks, sounded clear and strong. He sang an unfamiliar song about meeting friends on the other side. Security camera footage shows Ozzy reaching out to an empty corner of the room and smiling. He nods as if agreeing to something and says, "All right, I'm ready." At 4:47 a.m., Ozzy peacefully closed his eyes. Maria said there was a smile on his face, the first in many months. He looked happy, she recalled, as if he had finally found peace. After Ozzy's death, thousands of unreleased songs, diaries with confessions, and recordings that could change rock music history were found in his house. But Sharon made a decision that shocked everyone. In Ozzy's house basement, they discovered a room whose existence even the children didn't know about. It stored recordings of all his songs from 1970 onward, including those never released. Ozzy's diaries contained records of crimes he committed in his youth. Murder in a fight, concealing evidence, bribing witnesses. "I'm no saint," he wrote, "I'm a monster who learned to sing." The most shocking discovery was a cassette recorded an hour before his death. Ozzy sang a cappella, "Goodbye, my friends," a farewell to everyone he loved and lost. Learning the archive's contents, Sharon made a shocking decision. She burned all recordings except one cassette. "Let the world remember him as a musician, not a monster," she said. The only surviving recording, Ozzy's last song, was given to the Rock and Roll Museum, but it can only be heard with family permission, which they don't give. After Ozzy's death, strange events began happening in all family members' homes. Kelly sees her father's ghost, Jack hears his voice, and Amy claims he appears to her in dreams. Ozzy's will contained a strange line, "My songs are not my songs, they belong to the one who gave me my voice. When the time comes, he will take them back." What did this mean? And who was that mysterious giver? Ozzy Osbourne died, but his story continues to live. In a world where rock stars become gods and gods turn out to be human, the Prince of Darkness remained a mystery. He sang about death all his life, and death finally came for him. But even in the grave, Ozzy Osbourne continues to amaze the world. Because true legends never die, they just move to another stage.